Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of February the 13th till 19th, 2023. We have quite an intense week ahead of us because certain bigger power players are making key connections in the sky. Their meetings are perfecting roughly around the same time, and these two, at least, energies are quite very different, almost contradictory in nature, so it will be up to us to use them simultaneously to alchemize them into something that ultimately is going to work in our lives, because the word work is a keyword here, not necessarily as job, as profession, even though for many people it might even play out in that area of life, so it will be connected. But the word work means our own works, that what we're building. One of these is, without a doubt, our futures. So there will be a lot of energy invested into Mercury, thought this week, Saturn, structure, how the thought basically supports our structure, especially that which we are in the process of building. And there is also a meeting of Neptune and Venus, and this might wash us away, over flood us, so to speak, with a lot of emotion, faith, fantasy. But at the same time, there is power in this for an emotion felt in an extraordinary intense way. While it becomes real, it enters even real life. So this is the potential that the energy has to offer for us. Now, the not so favorable expression, of course, it can drown us when a fantasy becomes way too real, in a way that perhaps it can get out of control. Now, that is never ever a good idea, because it starts slowly and surely dissolving us, and that is something that the sign of Pisces with Neptune in it is notorious to do. So we do need to be careful, even if this energy is spiritual in nature, and it might cause a sense of deeper elation. Even the most divine expressions, well, they do have the tendency to pull us out from our grounding, to elevate us, give us such a high frequency, such a, now this is such a cliche, such a high vibe, so to speak, which might not necessarily be all that noticeable to us, because our senses might not be able to differentiate between different higher states. High is high, basically, so the human self kind of perceives it in a similar way. Yet this is where we need to truly refine our senses, because when we start getting into something which is totally ideal, the highest religious philosophies, well, how well can they be executed in 2023? So you know what I mean. Yet the essence of all of them is purely divine, the purest benevolence, the purest wisdom, basically, put into a very perceivable, understandable, short form. Yet there is a limitation to it, because we do live here on Earth. So this is what the Venus and Neptune conjunction also is about. How high can we go? How truly can we embody our faith and our highest principles? Because embodying them does lead to empowerment and balance, but embodying them in such a way where perhaps embodying the body, the physical, the earthly self, even the lower ego, does not have the capacity to hold it, well, that's where it's an imbalance already. And it does send us into the most elated states, but sometimes that does not function all that well in, a 3D, concrete, down to earth reality. So we do need to keep our balance. And this kind of goes hand in hand with Venus and Neptune escapism. We crave escapism. We crave the depthness. Either the depthness of a connection with another person, romance, sensuality. This is where whatever type of connection that might pop up in our lives or we might want to manifest for ourselves, it has the tendency to become deep, to be meaningful, to be about soul as much or if not more about anything else. So if that element isn't there, the soul, the connection, the senses, the subtle senses, Pisces, then it might turn into a disappointment. It might turn into a powerful disillusion. So this energy can go both ways. So it is really up to us to keep the balance. And also this week, Venus and Mars square is almost no longer operational. And that kind of means that the mental sphere will no longer challenge. The fantasy, the illusion, the feeling, the vibe, the frequency, the mental sphere will not really want to come with the doubts, with the questions. It will just want to go with the flow, because that is, Mars in Gemini without the square. So this is such a good example how, the celestial conversations, the trines, the blessings, yet without the square, the energy is not all that balanced and not all that clearly understood by us, the people experiencing it. So this is like an astrological advice, if you'd like, for other astrologers or becoming astrologers. Don't don't fear the square. The square is truly a blessing in disguise most of the times. Okay, when there's like Mars Saturn square or a health situation is challenged by, okay, I can totally understand why no one wants to see the positive side of it. Yet that is not all that common. Most people can tap into the beneficial part of any square, and excuse my arrogance, but perhaps even a natal grand cross. No aspect is impossible to beat. Yes, absolutely, there can be aspects where you see that it's so hard that chances are the person or us or the times or whatever, we're in great disadvantage. For example, something is conjunct a really malevolent fixed star and you just know that there is going to be temptation or misfortune or, the universe not playing ball. But at the same time, investing inner power to counter it, to alchemize it, the attempt, the try, well, that is the success in itself. Because it's okay if we are more or less defeated by a hard aspect. It's okay if we are failing, if we are being, for example, unwise, falling into the pattern. And this is where us astrologers are not really exception. Because in a way, perhaps when you fall into the bad pattern, like, for example, there's a square, and I would say, do not, by any means, do not do that. And I find myself in life that I've already done it. And only then do I remember my own advice. So, it's okay. That's absolutely fine to be in it, to be lost, to the moment to get absolutely tense, sometimes even hopeless, because that's when the, inner pressure creates the diamond. That's when the fusion actually takes place within us. So, anyway, I'm not really sure why I am speaking about the square, because this week actually is not all that square based, or very, very faintly, but maybe someone out there needed this small advice about the square, maybe because a natal square to them personally is kind of frightening them or stressing them out. Or maybe this is some guidance for myself later on. But anyway, let's get to a much more serious note. So at the very beginning of the week, Mercury holds an outer sign conjunction with Pluto. And I do believe that this energy is even more significant than the in sign conjunction when Mercury conjuncted Pluto within Capricorn. And why do I say this? Well, Mercury conjunct Pluto in Capricorn, so yesterday, or sorry, today, maybe. Anyway, that is very, very important because that puts very clear, crystallized information, choices, decisions, knowledge, discussions that we had with ourselves on the table. So we know something. We know our truth. We feel our truth. We probably did receive the information, the communications, the responses, replies from authorities that we needed, or some of us might have already signed a contract or made a commitment, Mercury conjunct Pluto, and that is a power. Now, the outer sign conjunction, when Mercury is in Aquarius already, that's where we're working with that energy that is influencing our lives strongly, mentally, especially right now in the past couple of. And of course, let's not forget that Mercury was retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. So all of the Mercury retrograde, everything that happened to us basically in December and the first half of January belongs here. And that is also very, very important because all of those communications, informations, choices, options, preferences, Pluto, inner truths, inner feelings that arose from within us, those were the foundations, the basis of our decisions, choices, options, and Capricorn, especially in a very 3D way. So money, income, living situation, routine, how to structure basically your year, your month, what it is that you have available. And this is very, very important because this was the essence of the Mercury retrograde in our lives. What is available in what are our construction materials? Aquarius. Pluto is going into Aquarius. That's when we already need to start, at least, how should I say, unpacking the bricks at the construction site. The materials must be transported to the construction site. The construction site symbolically represents our futures, whatever it is that we are inputting energy, and the massive changes, life changes that have been with us from 2020 onward, and even before, of course, a few years before. So all of that belongs to the personal inner dialogues that we are going to have with parts of ourselves, with the universe, and of course sharing our inner dialogues with other people as well, Aquarius, our circle basically, whoever it is that we are connected to, and they're important people. So we are planning the future. We are working with it. Next week we will have a Mercury and Uranus square, and that's when whatever we set up until next week, well, it needs to basically be aligned with what we have in our lives right now, as in it's the plan, the initiation, the discussions, the negotiations, the contracts that you signed for, affecting your future, those come with a surprise factor. A readaptation might be needed because surprises come, but ultimately that's nothing bad. That's, a final Uranian type of reality check, as in, this is what you've done so far, this is what you should be, aware of, this is what you should anticipate, and with this being said, go on and basically keep up the good work. But also at that time, a lot of surprises may come from friends, from other people, from the internet, from social circles, and of course there might also be blockages in communication and, the flow of information. But again, that's next week's horoscope, not this week. Another important energy here is that Jupiter is also at the beginning of the week opposing Ceres, and this is so interesting because Ceres in the sign of Libra, Ceres is food, nurture. Libra is justice, equity, equilibrium. Jupiter is also responsible for justice, and in the sign of Aries, the sovereignty of the self, self-justice, or how do you... Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to look up at that self-justified or auto-justified, self-righteous, sorry, okay, that's it. So self-righteousness. So when these energies kind of oppose each other, there has to be an opposition, an equilibrium. So there might be a lot of discussions, a lot of stir-ups, a lot of shocks, a lot of reality checks, because also at this week, as I said, the Sun meets Saturn. That's a powerful reality check. But part of that is about food, the prices of food, the repartition of food, food blockages maybe for the future, or Saturn in Aquarius, what is shared with everyone, what everyone has access to. Because if certain people, for example, the individual Jupiter in the sign of Aries, are struggling in the world with food regardless of the reason, injustice, the legal system isn't working too well, Pluto in Capricorn, high-end corruption, or anything, the reason doesn't necessarily matter. There has to be an action and cry out for food series to be fair, to be accessible, to be available for absolutely everyone. Now, of course, this energy won't be ideal. It will be an attempt, but there might be protests, there might be a lot of discussions, and even actions in court of justice, locally, nationally, so to speak, and internationally at the same time. Um, Also, what I would like to mention at this Jupiter and Ceres opposition, it's that perhaps this is where, because of this great imbalance, alternative, whatever it means to, food, the commerce of food, trade of food, is going to start appearing out of sheer need in communities where it's actually possible. So we might see in the world out there the first projects, the first, let's say, attempts where people want to go back to a trade basis, as in currency free. And if I'm not mistaken, there is already some attempt at this in India, but the name of this experimental state, or I do believe this is the right term to use, evades me, but we will see this starting to get online in the world, at least as projects. Now going back to the more important part of the astrological configuration, the Venus and Neptune conjunction. So yes, this can, amongst the spiritual hype that I have mentioned at the beginning of the horoscope will definitely evoke whatever has happened in the world from an artistic perspective, from a collective spiritual perspective, as in the spiritual tendencies of the collective, from a deeper philosophical perspective, evoke the events of April 2022, when, close to this degree, the meeting of Neptune, Jupiter, and Venus herself took place. Now, that energy is not one time off, it lingers there for some time, and when a planet like Venus goes through that degree, a reverb or echo is definitely going to be evoked. So what was in your heart, in your dreams, in your fantasies, in your romantic life around that time? What kind of perhaps dreams, prophecies, personal, predictions, in the sense that almost negotiations with the universe, with the self, what has, you know, been there in your life, because you might get a strong echo of that at this Venus and Neptune conjunction, and but this might last for basically all of the week, because Venus will head to that 27 degree of Pisces, and that will be the greater Venusian expression of that energy. Another supportive conversation is also at around the 15th, 16th of February, where Mercury holds a sextile with Jupiter, and Mercury in the sign of Aquarius. And we must also not forget that Saturn and the Sun are also in this part of the sky, so Aquarius has a great empowerment. Aquarius is the rational, sometimes even hyper rational. I think, therefore I am, but also this taken onto the mind over matter frequency. So that means the power to solve problems with our intelligence, to make connections with the help of our mental sphere, and, for example, to make connections. This is like a totally applicable example, because we can make connections on the internet. We can look up people, information, opportunities, things to learn, things to take into consideration. So very many things are not really new under the sun. Nothing's new. Someone dreamed it up. Someone has already done it, set it up one way or another. So it can be a great source of power, inspiration, and we can steal a little bit of the collective knowledge that is available to us. It is basically our rights as human beings to have access to our kind's collective information that is shared with all of us. So this energy is quite fantastic for that, because Jupiter makes it happen all that much quicker. It expands. Communication goes better. Your message, your comment, what you search on the internet comes to you that much easier. Sometimes you don't even need to do anything really. It comes to you, and the true work of the sextile is your own follow-up. And this period is really good for job offers, going back and forth, as in sometimes it's even the employer who makes the phone call and is all that persuasive. In this period, we can see how the tables sometimes turn, where it is exactly the people looking for jobs, for work basically, that are seduced, that are fought for by employers. So yeah, this energy perhaps is going to be specific for 2024, when Pluto touches that 0 degrees of Aquarius once again, but the difference is that it's there to stay in 2024. So everything that has to do with employment, everything that has to do with collective value, how one is compensated for one's time, effort, work, etc., we will already start living it in a profoundly transformed way by 2024. But this is how it's all set up. And another conversation that Mercury is going to be holding, it will oppose Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Leo. If Mercury, especially in the sign of Aquarius, is all about the strength of the mind, where through our intelligence, our thinking, our mental creativity, Sun in Aquarius, and the higher self as well, because let's not forget, the highest expression of Aquarius is that the divine lives within us in a real, as in lived way, as it's real. And we do have access to a certain degree to our more divine skills if needs to be. And this period with Saturn in Aquarius was truly all about this. We had so very many blockages, especially with the Saturn and Uranus square, where our lives, our dream, our plan, our something was like absolutely impossible. Every obstacle was there. Yet we're here right now, which means we made it, which means that we did figure it out. Maybe not everyone figured it out, externally, but figuring out what attitude you need to do to make it through, to be okay, to be an advantage, that's also figuring it out. So that also goes 100%. So we were kind of forced to do this, and with the Saturn and Uranus square, so we're speaking about 2021 and certain parts of 2022, but in 2022 it was very intense. We were all swept out of our comfort zones. We were all hit with anxieties, fears, discomforts, shocks of different kind, yet we're here. And only now can we appreciate how much those those moments where we've been kicked out of our comfort zones did come to our aid, did advantages, did transform our lives into something much more closer to what we are who we are at the very core of our beings. So this is Mercury in Aquarius, Black Moon Lilith in Leo. Now that's who you are at the very, very core of your heart. And one expression of that, without a doubt, is the inner child. With Lilith in it, the inner child cannot really be totally subjugated. Just like any child, like real children, our inner child is angry, frustrated, has certain desires, has certain wants, just like children, and you cannot tell your heart, it doesn't make sense, I cannot offer this to you, not now, or this is childish. Black Moon's Lilith in transit in the sign of Leo is gonna really mirror it to us how powerful the inner child is, and at the same time that everyone is a child. Especially those individuals who operate 90% of their lives from adult mode are gonna find this Lilith transition quite challenging. But I do believe in the best sense possible, where sometimes your heart will force you to take the siesta, or where life will force you to do something childlike. Like, let me just give you an example. There's this CEO or whatever, and you can imagine that 90% of that person's everyday life is usually in adult mode. but they have a child, a daughter, and she demands that the father spends the day with her, some kind of tea party, something like that. The father, ultimately, there will come a moment when no is not an option, and there it is. How the inner child is alive and the inner adult is forced to allow it. So better make it fun for yourself. People who are usually very much alive inner child wise, well, they might find this energy where the inner child is so like naughty that it even seduces you to make all the wrong choices, kiss all the wrong people, uh, get in all the wrong kind of hobbies, or not know measure. But anyway, we are speaking about this Mercury and Black Moon Lilith opposition right now. So the hyper rational expression of Mercury meets the hyper sensual, creative, basically the moodiness, the caprice of the inner child. And how do these two energies become good bedfellows? Well, this is where the Mercury has to accept that the child, inner child, and desires in our hearts, things that we want. Some of them make no sense whatsoever, and that is also perfectly okay, because if Mercury accepts this, it can start thinking the right way, if you know what I mean. But Black Moon Lilith also needs to accept that Mercury does need time, the right setup, conditions in order to give her the delight of the heart. So this is when the two conflictual sides of our inner being handshake, become allies, and life becomes very, very fun, intense, and interesting. And this is where the chaos, well, it is tiring, don't get me wrong, but we don't even mind because there is fun in it. Now, to ruin the fun a little bit, at the same time, we also have the Saturn and Sun conjunction. Now, this energy is not really something all that special because we do have this conjunction every year. And every year it does mean one way or another a reality check. The sun is the light of our consciousness, the ego, our greater awareness of the self, the generation of the self, basically. And Saturn is that which is accomplishable, and in a sign of Aquarius, the awareness of that which is not. So this is where we are already in the midst of planning, building, or readying ourselves to leap into our futures. And the Saturn kind of shows us what we have done until now, what was working really well, who in our lives needs to come with us into the future, and who in our lives has to stay in their dimension, so to speak. But this energy does require, a lot of being real with yourself. It can be a little bit tough, it can be a little bit hard, especially because let's not forget, at the same time, Venus is dancing with Neptune, so the fantasy, the dreaminess, I want to be free, I want to live this romance, I want to connect with the universe in the deepest way, I want to, I don't know, be enlightened already, or anything Neptunian and especially if you're an artist. This is where your work of art is more alive than you. It is much more important than you, as in there's that absorption, but there's this reality check as well. Okay, all that is nice and fun for my spirit, but here I am in real life. What do I do? Some people have to move. Other people have to sign the contract, take loans, invest, or at least have a solid financial or any other kind of plan for the future, or at least know, well, Who are my friends really? Who or where do I belong to? So you can imagine this energy is not all that easy to process. And at the very end of the week, on the 19th, the Sun does leave the sign of Aquarius and joins Neptune in the sign of Pisces, where ultimately they will meet much later on. But this transfers the energy from Aquarius onto Pisces. And we must not forget that Saturn is still very, very close to the Sun. So this is a preparation of how Saturn's transit in the sign of Pisces is going to feel like. And Pisces comes with dreams, intuition, prophecy, why not? So I do believe that the end of the week and the beginning of next week is really gonna prepare us emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, psychically for what we're gonna be having in Saturn's transit in Pisces until 2026. That will be quite important. And this Pisces season, and of course I would like to wish a very, very, very happy birthday month for all Pisces natives, especially my really, really nice Pisces friends. Um, but this Pisces season is gonna feel like a very strong purge, but it will have a great gentleness to it, exactly because the Sun, just like Venus, but when it will be the Sun's turn, will reactivate the Jupiter, Neptune, Venus triple conjunction back in April 2022. So it's going to be quite intense, but in a healing way, in a purifying way. And this is where everything that purges us, everything that we might come to the conclusion that we want to give up in our lives, it's no longer part of our story. May that be a trauma, a situation, a person. Under this 2023 Pisces season, that's gonna be greatly, I'm not even sure which word to use, so please forgive my unprofessional take here. Rewarded when as Saturn will take every single degree of Pisces from this March onward. So even if this Piscean purge period comes with great intensity, it is an intensity that we're deeply going to be grateful for when Saturn will make its way on the same path. So no matter what we give up, who we give up, what substance, Pisces we give up, or, what we do for our health, because Saturn and Pisces together many times mean hospital, prison, confinement, isolation, and I'm not everything that we make right, everything that we clean up now, purge up now, is going to make our Saturn Pisces transit that much lighter, that much more peaceful, that much more spiritually fruit bearing. And what is spiritually fruit bearing? Inner peace, or a good attempt at serenity, being okay with more people in our lives than not. All of those are great, great, great blessings. So, yes, but after the Sun, later on Mercury will join the party in Pisces, and that kind of means that the energy would have moved from Aquarius into Pisces, yet Aquarius's job is far from finished because Pluto will move into this, and everything that these other planets have done in the sign of Aquarius, basically Jupiter, Saturn, because these were the most important power players. Remember back in 2020, December, the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. But at the same time, all the not minor, but the outer planets, the fast moving planets, have also done a lot of work in Aquarius in these past couple of years. So Pluto will strongly work with that in 20 year, of course, in the 20-year window. But Aquarius is the sign of anticipation. So we will already get signs, and those people who do learn how to anticipate will kind of know what to expect. So this is when the future, mentally, perceivably, anticipation-wise, starts coming online. Until now, everything was a great fog. Collectively, individually, from so very many perspectives, now it's starting to become visible. The light, sun, an erratic sun in Aquarius, the light, a big flash of light. When it's midnight, it's pitch black, but it's a thunderstorm. When there's a big, lightning bolt, it lights up everything just like daytime for a millisecond. But that's how it's gonna feel like. So you can catch a good, an old camera, the blitz. The blitz catches the moment, and you will have the picture. And if you have the picture in your mind, Aquarius, you will kind of know what to do in 2024 for yourself, for your dream, for others, for your goals, purposes, principles, and you will also kind of know what to expect or how to anticipate your position, collectively speaking, for your connection with the collective, because Aquarius, the individual and the collective together simultaneously make up the whole. So yeah, the sun, this Pisces season, the sun entering into the sign of Pisces is going to be quite significant, and all of us who did learn to basically work with intuition, well, we will get very strong messages, very strong guidance. It will feel like living like a double life where you were never more sucked into the ether, perhaps in this incarnation, than at this moment. Because, as I said, the energy is felt one way when the conjunction happens, and I'm speaking about April 2022, and it's felt a totally different way when the energy is already built, deposited there, waiting for an activator, and in this case, Venus and the Sun. So it is definitely going to be a spiritually, emotionally, psychologically very, very intense week, and there are going to be surprises. But what matters the most, perhaps, is the reality check that the Sun meeting Saturn this week is going to be providing for us. So thank you so much for listening. I do hope that you enjoyed it and you found it useful. Thank you for all the love, all the support. Thank you for all the generosity. I'm wishing everyone a blessed week, and until next time, bye for now.